Thank you so much, Megan. Hi, yes, my name is Juliet King, and I am a board certified behavior analyst at Forda. And we're going to be going over and discussing today from overwhelmed to empowered, managing daily life with confidence. So, what we'll be talking about today is we're going to be going over some caregiver burnout, setting yourself up for success, some organization techniques. Some of them might be pretty obvious, but maybe I can talk some people into doing some of the stuff. Increasing independence in your child because that will hopefully take some of the work off of you as well. And then also, over my years, I have gotten some great strategies from caregivers, educators, and also children's TV shows. So I just want to share some of those too, because honestly, some of those are my favorite things to talk about. Absolutely. Um, Here's a little bit of information about Forta. We are entirely telehealth, applied behavior analysis therapy, specializing in children diagnosed with autism. We do put a really heavy emphasis on parent training, and we also don't have any wait lists. So you can start receiving parent training quicker. And a lot of us are very experienced about the things that like I'm going to be going over today and the different topics and stuff that I'm going to be starting tonight. So if you'd like to visit our website or check out our email, both of those are there. Okay, so I this topic, we've been doing this series for a bit now, and this topic I wanted to come at it slightly a little bit different, where it's yes, I am a clinician, I'm a behavior analyst, I do all of those kinds of things, but I also wanted to come at it from a very like human perspective too, of I'm a clinician with ADHD. So a lot of these strategies and things that I'm going to give you are also strategies that like I use and that can really benefit our kiddos that have like autism and ADHD as well. I'm also coming at this topic too, as I used to be a primary caregiver for one of my siblings that was in a wheelchair. And so I understand it. Of course, to only a certain degree, but I definitely understand caregiver burnout and just how important it is, how much I don't think it gets discussed enough. But I really wanted to kind of bring that at the forefront of, yes, I'm hoping that we find strategies and I'm hoping I'm able to share some things with you today that can help alleviate that. But burnout is a real thing. It's definitely something that a lot of parents are affected by. So I wanted to make sure that I took a moment just to kind of talk about that because I believe it's a bit of like an elephant in the room when we're giving all of these suggestions and all of these recommendations and things to do. But I feel like it does a disservice to not bring it up as well. So parents of children with special needs are more prone to mental and emotional exhaustion, depressive symptoms, conflicts within couples, thoughts of escape, child neglect, and parental violence as well. These symptoms of burnout can be caused by like there's a lot of social isolation. It can be very difficult to take children out when they have special needs and to go to socialize at play dates with families. A lack of support as well. You maybe don't have aunts and uncles and grandparents that could watch a typical child because your child might be a little bit more challenging to watch. Children's unpredictable behaviors that can also put you on edge the entire time and the entire day, which can lead to that. Communication barriers with your child, and then also just conflicting obligations. You might be also raising other siblings as well. And that's a lot. That is a lot on your plate. That is a lot that you are doing. So I really want to make sure that like as I'm giving these like strategies, these tips and everything, that it's like I don't ever want to make a parent feel like, oh, I'm not doing these sorts of things. I'm not doing enough. I could be doing better because just showing up here tonight, just watching this later on is really doing a lot for your child. Education actually shows to really decrease parent and caregiver burnout. So does just like reaching out for support. So I want to make sure that like if you're having these feelings of burnout, please reach out to a doctor or pediatrician, talk to your current BCBA if you have one, local parent support groups, or honestly, Facebook groups, especially like in the autism community, huge, so much support and help in those. And then also reaching out to find like respite providers and stuff as well. So that's my little PSA on that. I know that the burnout just working in this field is very hard and very high. That being a parent where you are the one with your child for far more hours, is definitely even higher and even more. So I have a lot of respect for the parents that are here tonight or the parents that are watching later on. So in that same kind of vein, Nora Roberts has one of my favorite quotes. One time during a question and answer thing, she's an author. She's written over 200 books while also raising a family and doing all the rest of the normal human stuff that we do. And they asked her how she was able to balance everything. And she gave one of my favorite quotes where she said, "The key to juggling is to know that some of the balls you have in the air are made of plastic and some are made of glass." And so, what exactly does that mean when you're prioritizing? If you think about it in a way, plastic, if you're juggling a bunch of balls that are plastic, they bounce. You can let those drop. So think about all of the different things that like you have going on inside of your life. You have, your relationship with your partner. You have IEP meetings. You have kitchens to clean. You have dinners to make. You have all of that that you're juggling and trying to keep in the air. Some of those things might be plastic that if you let them fall for the day, you maybe don't get to that task. It's going to be okay. Those things are going to bounce. But some things, on the other hand, are glass. Some of those balls are going to break. So I like to think of it as like ball pit balls, where it's like, yeah, you step on them, they might get a little scratch, they might be, but like they're going to be okay. But then on the other hand, you have those very fancy ornaments at like your grandmother's house that it's like if you even just breathed on them, she would immediately make you go into like the other room because they're that fragile. Things inside of your life might fall into those two categories. So, just for example, such as mine, my examples are things that are plastic, things that I can like let go of for the day, cleaning the kitchen, painting the bathroom cabinets, or texting my in-laws back because it's never just like one text message. It's always going to be a very long conversation with them. Can't always get to that. But the things inside of my life that are glass that'll break is babysitting my niece. She's very important to me. Every Wednesday morning, I am there with her, and I try my best not to miss it because I know that she would be very sad, and I'd be sad about missing that too. Writing my session notes for work, that's mostly just so that I don't get in trouble at work. And I like to keep my job. And then also spending time sewing or spending time crafting. That's really important for like my mental health. That's really important to help me not have burnout inside of my job. So when there are 50 million things that are happening inside of your life and you have 50 million priorities, taking a moment and really thinking about which of those are plastic, which of those are glass, which ones can you drop and it'll be okay versus which ones are glass and which ones will break and it'll have a much more lasting impact if you aren't able to get to that. And that kind of helps like contextualizing. That can also kind of go into as well, like picking your battles with kids. Sometimes it's just not worth the argument. Some of those arguments you can let go. Some of them you really need to put your foot down. Putting that kind of stuff into perspective can be really helpful with burnout as well and help you prioritize inside your life. So now let's talk about some of the things that I recommend to parents to set yourself up for success. I want to talk a little bit about routines. I also want to take a moment too and say that like I'm still checking in on like the chat, and if anybody has any questions, comments, anything like that, please feel free. I have like little spots broken in that I can double check and make sure that everyone's doing fine. But please share whatever you have, especially if you have recommendations and tips and things that you like to do as well. I'm going to talk about effective routines. Last week, my partner Mackenzie went over a ton of routines and visual schedules, so I'm not going to touch on that too much with her, but I'm going to just kind of give some like overall thoughts with that. So children with autism, or even just people with autism, or even sometimes ADHD, kind of depending, can really thrive on routines. It's nice to have that predictability. There's a lot of like comfort in predictability. There's a lot more less stress like inside of that when you have that. But I always recommend to parents to make sure that like there's still some flexibility in those routines because you don't want your child to become so into their routine that now they become very rigid in it. So there's kind of a delicate balance. So I usually recommend breaking the day down into blocks, making sure that like you have physical activity, quiet activities, playtime, therapies, and like social activities, and then that you find ways to like build in flexibility. So I like to keep times and blocks like just vague enough where it's like, between the hours of 4 and 5, at some point we're going to have coloring time. Just vague enough that in case it's 4:15 as opposed to 4 o'clock right on the dot, you won't have a child that's thrown off their schedule and just completely upset about it. I also like to implement like change days with warnings. I like to tell kids like, okay, Wednesday's going to be a little bit different, and kind of get them used to that. Those days will change. Opposite days are fun. Maybe you do your evening routine in the morning routines at night, you switch some things around. And then again, just having some like small deviations where you can, and then offering options and stuff as well. So it's kind of like during this time is a quiet activity, but we're not going to say what exactly the quiet activity is. We're going to offer options for that quiet activity. And then we're also going to, again, keep it a little bit more vague so that you can have those deviations in case things don't quite go as planned. Because I feel like more days than not, things don't quite go as planned. Here's some different things. If you have not heard of the website Teachers Pay Teachers, I love that website. It was started like years ago by teachers who were like selling their materials that they use because they were like, hey, if I'm going to, spend all these time and these hours making these anyways, might as well make some extra money. I support that. I think that that is fantastic. So there's a lot of really great resources. You can also find like a lot of really great like free resources and stuff on there. And now like BCBAs are getting into it, speech therapists, like everyone's using it. So if you haven't checked that one out, highly recommend. I like this visual schedule. I like that it's inside of a folder. I like that like the little tokens and stuff are all right there. It's easy to find and easy to see. I like this one that this one is also like, this one's obviously a school schedule, but it is like a little bit vague where it talks about like it's technology time, but like not exactly what technology time is, or like it's math games, but like what does math games really mean? Gives that little bit of flexibility. Those tokens are also removable as well. So if something needs to change in the day, you can remove those and you're able to continue on with your day. I really liked this one for like a weekend where, again, this one doesn't have specific times, but it does talk about things that are like going to happen on the weekend. Of Saturday, we're going to go to a mall. There's gonna be some cleaning. You're gonna have some iPad time at some point during the day. Sunday as well. And especially like when it comes to weekends, weekends can be really difficult because like that's a lot of free time. That's a lot of just being completely off their regular schedule to be able to get through. So having like little things like this can be really helpful. I also one time saw a video where a family had a visual schedule inside of the car because their daughter would get very upset not knowing like all the stops that they were making, where they were going to go. And I don't know why I never thought about putting a visual schedule in the car. I've gone years and that had never crossed my mind. I was always like, oh, visual schedules, home and clinic and, school. But no, you can bring a visual schedule anywhere. And I know a lot of our kids, sometimes you might have those days where you're just stuck inside of the car. And it might be a little bit helpful for them to be able to see that, first they're going to go to their therapies, then we have to stop at the grocery store. Last, we're going to go home. You can even break it down into even more things where it's like maybe if your child needs a little extra help, where it's like, first we're going to get inside of the car. We're going to put on our buckle. Then we have to stop and get gas. We're gonna have a snack. Like you can even break it down and you can make it as large or as small as you needed. That's helpful for your child to be able to like understand and grasp. But children knowing what's going to happen next can take out a lot of guesswork and can take out a lot of anxiety that they might have. I talked about this briefly in the social emotional regulation presentation that I gave, but kids hardly have any choices in life. They're told where to go, when to go, what to wear, what to eat, when to eat. They hardly ever have just independence and the ability to be able to make decisions for themselves. Um, and just think, like, even as an adult, like, we're not a big fan when that happens. We don't really like it when we have a plan for the day and then something goes awry and throws off that plan. Kids also don't like that. So it's like if we're able to take a little bit of that stress off of them, that's going to help with your transitions. That's going to help with that grocery store trip. It's going to help with the crying fit of a child wanting to know when they get to go home. That can bring down a lot of that overwhelm and make you feel a little bit more confident during that time. So these are some things where it's like at the beginning, they're probably going to take quite a bit of work to make, getting the Velcro, cutting out the pieces, that kind of stuff. But once you have that system in and once you kind of get used to that, it becomes an absolute breeze. I always recommend to parents, I'm like, invite some people over or maybe even use like TaskRabbit or something if you've got some extra change. Hire a local teenager. They can cut out the pictures and stuff for you, slap on some Velcro, and you'll be good to go. So if you can find people to help you with it, it can definitely make it a lot more pleasant of an experience. But it can be helpful in again alleviating some of this stress and some of this overwhelm. Organization. Organization can be so important. And again, I know that with something like this, this is not going to be any like crazy information. Like I'm sure you guys have been told and talked about organization, but sometimes it can be a little bit discouraging or a little bit hard to figure out, well, what do you organize? What should you keep? So I can tell you, like as a clinician and also somebody that has worked inside of schools, creating like a binder for your child, and that can be digital or it can be physical. As you see, I like florals and cute and pretty things. So I picked out a nice floral binder with a nice floral pen and very colorful tabs. But do you with your own style. But including like a document where you've just written down your child's milestones, because that will get asked to you quite frequently. Every time you go in for an initial assessment, we always want to know, when did your child start talking? When did they sit independently? When did they start standing? And frequently, parents are having to go through their cell phones, look back at their pictures, their videos to find that stuff. Sometimes it can be easier if you just take a little afternoon and write that all down, and then you just have it ready. If your child's enrolled in school, having their most recent IEP or 504 plan and their most recent report card can also be really helpful just to have on hand so that when a clinician asks you if they're doing a report or you just want to reference it, just having it there will make it a lot less overwhelming for you. I also recommend having like a therapy timeline. Sometimes we have to switch therapies so frequently as parents that we forget what company did they go to? What therapy did they have? The hours, the schedule, the dates and stuff. Just quickly jotting that down and just kind of having a little timeline is also really beneficial and can take a lot of stress off of you come times for us to do our reports and stuff. Keeping therapy reports also, initials, most recent, and exit reports. Getting those kinds of things can really help a clinician like expedite getting your like initial assessments and stuff done because that gives us so much more information about your child and what they've done and what they haven't done and like those kinds of things. So anytime that you can provide that, I'm always so grateful to families that do. And then, of course, any medication or health timelines as well can be really beneficial too, and can just kind of, again, help alleviate some of that stress and some of that overwhelm that you might be feeling. Um, Such as like, IEP time of the year, and especially when it comes to like that triannual every 3 years, or even report time every 6 months for insurance reports, can already be like a very stressful time for everybody involved. So just kind of having all of this stuff already gathered where you can just open it up and find it, I think can really help make that process easier for everybody and take away a lot of that stress. Organizing emails as well. I feel like this used to be a thing when emails and stuff were new, but now that we use emails for everything and spam and like I think if you look at my phone right now, there's at least 55 unopened emails. I looked at my mom and she had 453 unopened emails. That's so stressful for me, especially like I said, I have a late diagnosis of ADHD. So I like to color code things, which you will see even more in the next slide with my calendar. But just creating simple little folders where you can just like throw those into can be so helpful when you've got to reference those again or find those, and then you're not having to scroll through just loads and loads of spam. So again, it's like an easy thing. It'll take a little bit of time to set up, but once you do, you will thank yourself. Same goes with calendars. Again, I know that this is not like crazy mind-blowing information, but they can be so helpful nowadays. So I recommend, you can get a physical calendar. Bay Path Humane Society, I found online. They do it earns them money to be able to go to the Humane Society, and you can submit your animals to pictures for contests. I think that that's adorable. I love that. So if you're more of like a pencil person, go ahead and get that one. Or if you're more of a digital person, this is my phone. As I said, I love florals and cute things. If it's not cute, I'm probably not going to use it and do it. But as you can see, like I use the little like widget for my calendar, and I also color code things, and I have that color coding system right there. So it's like Google uses ridiculous names for their colors. So there's like grape, flamingo, tangerine, tomato, whatever. I have it all right there so that like at a glance I can see like what's a work thing versus what's an appointment versus what's just hanging out with my brother. All of that is just kind of easy. I also have my calendar shared with my husband as well. And he even has like his own separate color that I put him in as well. So it takes a little moment to set up and to kind of color code those things, but once you get there, I think that it has been amazingly helpful, especially for you parents where like, oh my goodness, some of you guys have so many extracurricular activities that you get your kids to. You have multiple therapies that you go to, all of that kind of stuff. And then I make sure that like I also set up notifications that it sends me a reminder before like an event's about to happen. Even for some of my events, I even get a reminder for when I'm supposed to be leaving the house. And that can be really helpful because sometimes I get way too into a task and I've completely forgot that I need to leave in 15 minutes. So going ahead and doing that, setting those kinds of things up can really, it might feel really overwhelming as you kind of do them. But again, once you start kind of getting used to it, it becomes second nature and becomes so easy. And then plus, maybe you'll have something cute to look at, like that adorable dog. I love it. Okay. Those are kind of my organization things. And again, like I said before, like I know that it's definitely difficult. It's difficult to stay organized. It's difficult to get the motivation to be organized, but these are the tips and tricks and things that like I've learned that's been really beneficial to me, and also the things that have been really beneficial for like other families that I have worked with too, that they've really benefited from doing a lot of like those different things too. Now, let's talk about promoting independence in the house because, the more independent that your child can be, the less that means that you have to do. And so I want to talk about like visuals. I want to talk about some like other options and stuff, but definitely visuals can be very helpful. Children with autism, people with autism and ADHD have been shown to be much more like visual learners and really benefit more from like having those visuals in front of them. So the more that you can do, the better until it becomes way too overwhelming and there's too many. You have like your standard ones, like I showed you, where you have your like your routines and your charts and like that kind of stuff, but you can even get creative with your visuals. What's available for snack and what's not available for snack. You can put that on the fridge, and then you don't have to deal with your kids asking you for a snack. They can go over, they can go and they can choose their own snack, and that's one less task that you have to do. Hygiene, you can break down brushing teeth into steps that a child can look at and they can follow those. Quiet activity options. I also liked one of my families like had one where it was what therapist that child would see on what days. They had a little week calendar that they took with our permission. They had pictures of me and the other clinicians, and they put our faces on the calendar because the child just always wanted to know who were they going to work with that day. Who were they going to see? Was it going to be speech? Was it going to be ABA? Was it going to be physical therapy? little things like that then helped them. They could go over to that and they could see exactly which one that they were going to work with for that day. And it just kind of took the stress off of everybody. Now, I want to make sure too that while you are promoting this independence in your child, while you are getting creative with these visuals, while you are letting your child do things that normally you would have done for them, make sure that you reinforce yourself for accepting imperfections. Kids will make mistakes and the task will take longer. But that's how they get better. That's how they're going to be able to learn. I have this conversation a lot with parents where they'll talk about how they just don't have enough time in their day to let their child, fiddle with putting dishes away when they know that they could just get it done in 5 minutes, or with putting on their own shoes, picking out their clothes, doing that kind of stuff. And what I like to try to remind parents is, well, if you continue doing it for them now, you're going to be doing it for them for the rest of their lives. If they don't learn now, they're never going to learn. And then also, what is your child going to do when you're not around? Because even though that is a sad and challenging topic to think about, one day they're not going to have you there. And are they going to be able to do these things on their own and have that independence? So even though while it might be quicker for you to do it yourself, it might be more efficient, it might be more to your liking, um, I don't I find it hard, and I haven't met very many parents that hope to be able to do those things for like the rest of their lives. They all eventually want their child to be independent and be able to do those things on their own. And this kind of goes with like that glass and that plastic metaphor when we're talking about juggling. Find out which of these things are plastic that you can let your child handle. That, if it gets dropped, oh well, it'll be okay. Make sure that like you're the one that's handling the glass things, but if there's plastic things that you can give to them, such as picking out their own clothes, maybe their clothes won't match perfectly. Maybe they won't be the most stylish choices, but they did it by themselves. They did it independently. You did not have to go and do it. Maybe making sure that they're stylish and matching. Maybe that's more of a plastic thing that like you can let drop. So finding out those kinds of things can definitely be helpful and take some things off of you. Here's some more examples of some of the visuals that I like to do. So this one's kind of like the what you can have out of the fridge, what's available. Then you don't have to go through like a whole conversation with your kiddos where they're like, what do we have for lunch today? Like you can just go tell them to look at the board so that you don't have to tell them for the 50th time. Little routines such as after snack, you throw away the trash, you put dishes in the sink, you wipe down the counter, you throw away crumbs. Also, when they're done playing, they clean up, they look around, they make sure that they put everything away, leaving no items. That's that double check. These sorts of visuals can be helpful too, because something that like a lot of parents don't know and a lot of parents haven't heard is that a vocal prompt. So giving your child a vocal reminder, telling them like, hey, you said that you were going to do this, or don't forget to throw away your trash. You forgot to clean up your dishes. I need you to do this. That's actually the hardest prompt to be able to fade. It's much easier to fade out physical prompts or gesture prompts, visual prompts, than it is to fade out those vocal ones. Kids become a lot more reliant on vocal prompting. And then that's just what they wait for, is they wait for a parent to tell them. They wait for that. But if you use maybe a gesture such as you have these visuals, you take your child, you physically walk them to the visual, you point to it and you walk away, that can eventually be faded out to now you're no longer having to physically walk your child. You are just pointing in the direction of the visual, and they're able to go and do it themselves to eventually now they just need the visual prompt. And then from there, they're able to fade that out because now it's become routine. It's a lot easier to fade these kinds of promptings than you having to nag and tell your child over and over and over again. So these kinds of prompts should also like help you out as well. Again, they take a little bit of time at the beginning, but if you use resources such as Pinterest, Teachers Pay Teachers, I create everything on Canva. Canva has all of these pictures, and I know that it was something that Mackenzie went over last week, but like they don't have to be beautiful. They don't have to be gorgeous. They have to be efficient and they have to be functional. Kids do better when it's simpler. So, like, you don't have to worry about doing pretty backgrounds and this and that. As long as the information is there and it's easy for kids to understand and it's in a way that they can understand, then you're good. It's a fast thing. They don't have to be super duper beautiful. I also love using timers. We tell families and stuff all the time to use timers, but I think using timers that your kid actually understands can be very beneficial and can be very helpful. So I love a lot of these visual ones. They have ones where they turn colors, where it goes from green to yellow to red. They also have like this cute little rainbow one where like the rainbow disappears like as the time is going down. This one's an app. It's called Visual Countdown Timer. I use it constantly. It reveals little pictures, and the kids always love seeing what the picture was that's revealed. They love racing the timers. They love doing all of that. You can also like pick specific pictures, but even if you're like out and about and you're at the grocery store and your child's wondering when they get to leave, and you say 5 more minutes, you can set a timer for them. You can download just like a quick one, but at least this is a timer that they'll understand uh, because they might not understand how long 5 minutes is versus 1 minute versus anything like that. Breaking it down, finding ones that they do understand can be really beneficial and really helpful for kids. Okay, these are some of my favorite ones. I'm double checking the chat. Looks like we're still clear and everything, but okay, these are some of my favorite strategies that I have picked up over my years of working with families, working in the education system, doing all of that, and also just watching a lot of children's TV because that is just a frequent thing that you do inside of our field. You find yourself watching a lot of Bluey and Sesame Street. So, this one has to be one of my all-time favorites. Helper of the day. We all know that classrooms have those. They have jobs. They have the door holder. They have the line leader. They have that. You can have that inside of your house as well. A helper of the day. It's great for competitive children and it's great for siblings. What this is every day there is a family helper of the day, and they are the ones that get to be first to the car, get to go first in the game, in a game, help get the mail, anything else that your kids frequently fight about. This was very helpful in a family that had 3 young children that everything was a competition. Oh my gosh, who got to get to the door first? Who got to get to the car first? Who got served their plate first? These kids didn't even care about being first. They just wanted to like win when it came to their other siblings and stuff. So what this looked like is that parent put it on the door. I recommend having it somewhere prominent where there was a helper of the day. And it was rotated daily, or they even did where certain the kids had specific days, like one child was like Mondays and Wednesdays. It was really funny because in this instance, even the baby got to be the helper of the day, and the baby got to go first in line and do those kinds of things. And so you put the helper of the day. Um, I have Matilda, Wendy, and Dewey on mine. Matilda is the helper of the day today. She's the one that gets to do all of those kinds of things. And why it helps, it creates predictable routines for kids. It also decreases arguments of hopefully now it's not going to eliminate things because siblings will be siblings, but it's hopefully going to decrease some arguments that you have, such as, again, who is going to get in the car first. It also establishes like a precedent and like a very concrete family rule. I also love how much flexibility it has. Anything can go to the helper of the day. If suddenly the kids start arguing over who is going to go on the swing first, well, who's the helper of the day? Okay, they get the swing first, set that timer. Okay, now it's going to be the next person. And because you're rotating that, because it's changing each of the days, again, it creates that predictability for kids. And I just love as like a parent, you can just decide and use helper of the day for whatever you want. So this one was, I thought, brilliant and absolutely fantastic. Another one. Okay, so this one I actually learned when I worked inside of a school that it was like a very challenging school. These children had a lot of trouble with emotional regulation. They had a lot of trouble with trust. They had a lot of troubles with like anger. Um, And we had a thing called telling stories. And so it helps kids with angers, emotional regulation, and also it's for those children that struggle with maybe telling the truths. And what it is it's just changing your language to avoid accusing your child of lying. Because to us, while that doesn't maybe seem like that big of a deal, it can be a very big deal for a child, especially when kids start developing like their sense of justice in the world. uh, Kids can be very aware of like lying versus telling the truth versus like fairness as well. And so sometimes just changing our language can help you avoid a lot of power struggle. So in this situation, how we set it up is basically instead of asking a child if they're lying to you, I like to ask a child, are you telling me a story? It helps diffuse the situation. It provides the child an out for smaller lies, such as, I had, oh, my nephew. My nephew was having a lot of trouble in transitioning into his preschool classroom. And he told me inside of his mind that he got so mad that he climbed up to the ceiling and he did a backflip and he started throwing things. And now did he really do that? I don't think so. He's pretty short, and he trips over his own 2 feet, so I don't think he can do a backflip. Uh, was it necessary for me to call out a lie like that? No. But was it necessary for me to kind of start teaching him the lesson that we need to be honest with what we're saying? Yeah. So instead of telling him, like, hey, that's not true, you didn't actually do that, I asked him, are you telling me a story? This sounds like a lot, or this sounds like a very interesting thing that happened. Are you telling me a story about it? It avoids that power struggle where it creates like less arguments, and it also kind of helps you maintain that trust between your parent and child. People don't like being accused that they're lying. Kids don't like being accused that they're lying. And frequently to kids too, especially while they're still kind of developing, they don't understand the difference between a lie and a truth. Something might feel really big to them that maybe isn't so big. They might say or like blow things out of proportion, but to them, it's true. To them, it feels like it's the truth. If you can kind of avoid getting into that while still kind of teaching them a lesson about it, because once you ask them, are you telling me a story? And you get a yes or no, now you can kind of get into that. You can kind of talk about lying a little bit more in a way that's not going to automatically set your child off and isn't automatically just going to blow the situation up even more or blow it out of proportion. It gives you a little bit more leeway. Are you telling me a story? Has got to be one of my absolute favorite ones. Okay, interrupting. This is great for kids who need a lot of attention and for those kids that just frequently interrupt. Sometimes you might have a kid whose cup just never feels full. They always need that attention from you. They're saying your name over and over and over again. You can't even tell them that you're going to talk to them in a moment because they're saying your name so frequently. They're trying to get your attention. They're doing all of this kind of craziness. So this technique is when your child wants your attention, they place a hand on your arm and then you cover it with yours. So why this helps and what that exactly means, this came from an episode of Bluey, that one of my families actually started implementing it. I showed up to like one of the houses, and then when I was talking to the mother, and their child just went up and placed their hand on their arm, and then the mom put her hand on top of theirs, continued talking with me. And then when we finished our sentence, she looked down at her child. She said, thank you so much for waiting. What can I help you with? And I was like, I'm sorry, excuse me. What was that you just did? And she told me, she's like, it was from Bluey. And so, yeah, the dad talks about this where it's acquired a way of getting the attention. It lets your child know in like a physical way that you heard them. And it also like acknowledges them without disrupting what you were doing. They clearly know that you heard them because your hand is now over theirs. you don't have to break that conversation. You don't have to tell them to wait. Again, we talked about those vocal prompts, telling kids to wait, telling kids, give them a minute. Also, telling kids things like that when they're interrupting you might fuel them on more because they're still getting your attention. And, it's very quickly that you go from wait, hold on, to they say something outlandish and suddenly they're no longer waiting. You've given them your full attention and they got exactly what they wanted. This is a nice way of kind of teaching not to interrupt. I really recommend, especially with this one, practicing this one when things are calm. So even just like a little bit of a role play with a child, being like, okay, I'm going to talk to the stuffed animal here. What do you do if you want to get my attention? We do the hand, we do the hand. Okay, awesome. Now I give you that attention. Now we're moving on with it. So, I love this one. I think that this one is really fantastic and was absolutely one of my favorite things that I learned. So this one's like another helpful one. And again, it kind of brings down that overwhelm as well, because while you're trying to do 50 million things and you have a child yelling your name over and over and over again, that's going to feel very overwhelming in those moments. This one also came from a family, monitoring screen time. We know that that can be really difficult. We know that it's something as parents that you definitely should do. Children nowadays know how to get around parent locks. YouTube Kids isn't as like trustworthy and safe like as we would want it to be. So we need some better ways of being able to monitor what our kids are watching and what they're doing on their screen time. Or also, like a lot of schools, a lot of their activities and homeworks are online as well. So kids are just having to have more screen time. So this is great for children who need help staying on task. And also when a parent needs a break, sometimes you just need to hand a child a tablet. You need just a moment to be able to breathe, but we still need to keep track of what the kids are doing. So when your child's on their phone or tablet, cast it onto the TV to more easily see what they're doing. So the setup looks different for different apps. And what I mean by casting it onto this screen, for those of you that maybe haven't done it before, is it's like you can mirror or whatever your child's doing on their like device, you can see it on the television. So if your child's working on one of their reading apps that they have to do for school, it can be right there on the TV. You don't even have to have the sound on, but you can more easily glance at the TV, make sure that they're still on task, reinforce them from that, tell them that they're doing a great job being on task, and then continue on with whatever you are doing. So like in YouTube, it's that little TV that's got like the little half circles around it. On my Android and like Google Pixel, it says cast. It also has it for on iPhone and tablets, it's screen mirror. So as long as you have like a smart TV that it can connect, which I feel like nowadays that's almost all TVs, you're able to cast that and you're able to put that on there. And it makes it easier for you to monitor. It also makes your child aware that that you're monitoring them, so they're more likely to stay on task. I also feel like it kind of helps too because it almost takes a little bit of like the frustration and stuff off of you because like you don't have to pause what you're doing. You don't have to make assumptions that your kid's not on task because I know that that can be really frustrating too. If a child's on task and you just assume that they're not, so you walk over there and you look at what they're doing and then now they're mad at you because they were on task and they didn't like that you assumed that they weren't. It takes away a lot of like that kind of battles with a kid as well. And it almost kind of makes the TV the bad guy because the TV is the one that's tattling on them, not you, not a sibling, not something else. So anytime that you can maybe put a little bit of distance and kind of take some of that anger off of you and maybe place it on something else can definitely be helpful when things are just getting very overwhelming. Maybe your child's been upset with you really frequently. So it just kind of like takes that away and gives you kind of a little bit of that balance there as well, while making things a little bit easier for you too. So these ones are just my two sources and stuff from like the first two things about burnout. There were some really interesting articles on those. But yeah, right now, if you have any questions or anything, I'm happy. I'll be here to answer any of them. You can also visit our website, or if you would like to find out more about like our upcoming topics or see what we have previously done, or if you would like, if you have any questions or would like any support like more quickly, care@fortahealth.com is also there to email. But please, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to ask right now. If not, then again, thank you so much for showing up. Thank you so much for being here and listening and taking time out of what I'm sure is a very busy and overwhelming schedule that you have.